but it's too late. We're recording. So, welcome to the Code Review Weekly Workshop. We're gonna talk about some items pertaining to code review. So, let me share my screen so that we're looking at the agenda all together. Yeah, we have a meager agenda, but that doesn't mean that we might not tap into a gold mine of conversation. But I ran into this last week. And I always find MRs like this interesting. Would love to hear just your all perspective on how you would approach reviewing MRs this way. So let me open this up. Doug Stoll did a fantastic job putting together an MR that concludes an experiment, and experiments are kind of like feature flags. So there's like a candidate and a whatever the opposite of candidate is, uh, control group. And there's a whole code branch that we're going to remove now that we've concluded the experiment. So 57 files changed. Uh, removing all sorts of large amount of lines, which is lovely on Mars to see. But I don't know. But how would you approach reviewing an MR like this? I mean, you're going to be pinged on either just the back end or just the front end, but uh, what's your all perspective on MRs that remove large section of code branches?
I think the first thing I'd do is run it locally and and click around in the UI and just see if anything's breaking, like click around based on maybe what's been removed.
Yeah, that's a really good that is a really good point, because things can go wrong. So even if we're just removing something, there should be some sort of acceptance criteria.
I mean, it's kind of what I do when I'm adding stuff in different, like I'm working on something at the moment that's got a lot of changes, and even though all the specs get updated and you add some automated tests, kind of I just, as a sanity check, just kind of click around a bit to make sure everything looks like it's working normally. But yeah, I mean, I'd do that, and then maybe sort of try and understand what is being removed. I'd like read the MR description and sort of really try and understand what should like kind of what the experiment was, and then what should still be working, even though if the experiment's been adopted or discarded, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
And if it's been adopted, just make sure everything's working as it's supposed to. And then maybe look at different sections of the code, like on the back end, look, kind of go, okay, is the GraphQL API been changed? Have there been changes to the REST API?
Yeah.
Look at the controllers and the models, like just kind of the different sort of, have services been changed? Have, what?
It looks like in this case it is just,
I don't know if that's,
it looks like in this case it is like just
removals,
controllers from the back end and these view helpers, I guess. And Doug did a fantastic job of, like, he left a whole bunch of annotation comments, like, which is great. And like, he knew this is a large MR, but it doesn't make sense breaking up an MR that's gonna, like, we're trying to turn off this feature flag, and whenever we do that, like, we need to kind of just remove everything on the other side of it. So he did a great job of, like, I think, directing back into how to review it. Some other things that stick out to me is sometimes we'll have an MR of like, okay, we're gonna remove the feature flag now, but like it hasn't even been enabled on .com yet. And like,
Mm.
uh, so just from a process perspective, sometimes it's helpful just keeping an eye on, are we are we sure we're ready to do this? And like usually there's some sort of comment from a product manager on an issue, or I mean if there's not and the code seems really fresh, that could be like a yellow flag of like, uh maybe we wanted to wait a milestone before removing it to see if any other issues kind of surface. Yeah, but manually testing it is a good idea. And when it comes to removing code, I don't know if there's much you need to do besides just like smoke testing of just running through it, making sure things aren't, throwing errors. Yeah. Did you have any thoughts on it?
Mm.
I agree with everything that just has been said. One thing to add maybe is I probably, especially with like if we're staying with this example with 57 files changed or files touched, I probably focus heavily on the tests. And by that, I mean, like, let's think about what we're changing, what kind of test coverage that we're having for this. And as a result of that, what kind of changes for our tests might be additions or removals as well, because I totally agree with the manual smoke testing. I'm a big fan of this myself, but sometimes I wonder if that is just only a feeling. Like we are dealing with a big product and we just can't test everything. That's not going to happen. So
Yeah.
making sure our automatic tests are in a good shape, that's definitely important on such an MR.
Yeah. Because sometimes removing can just change behavior, like not necessarily just remove behavior, but sometimes it can lead to something that just changed behavior. And
Yeah. It looks like the specs, it just removes them, or is it
in this case, yeah, there's a lot of specs just removing, and it makes
okay?
sense.
But where there's an orange dot, it means that the file's been
Modified.
modified. Yeah.
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 Um, so in this in this case, this is clearly just removing like a whole page.
Mm.
So one way of looking at this too, because I do think it's helpful going for, a line for line read through. Um, even though I don't envy any backender that's going to read all 2000 removed lines. You don't have, if we're removing the whole file, you don't have to read the whole file. That's worth clarifying. Well, maybe you do though. Um, the In this case, we're removing what I would call an entry point. So rather than removing like a service or removing some sort of feature enabling library module, um, we're removing a whole entry point from the controller. So it's like that perspective is really easy to test. Of like, does this thing not exist anymore? And you can also like just follow through the same trail that Doug probably followed when he put this together of like, okay, if we remove this entry point, what all was that entry point using? Are those modules needed anymore? Can I remove those modules? And like there's a uh so from the front end perspective, there's a lot that's removed here. Like even this, here's some components. So these are modules used to, power certain views, could be reused elsewhere, but it's not. So now that this isn't used at all, we need to remove it. And unfortunately, I don't think we have any linting that actually detects whether modules are used or not. Man, that kind of actually be nice. Um, it's worth writing an issue about.
I think we might
In the back end.
yeah,
Probably.
not necessarily modules, but certainly methods aren't
That's a
used.
good idea.
Although it might be modules, I'm not sure. I think I've seen that. It could be that I'm mistaking that with other places I've worked. But
Yeah.
yeah, it should. I mean, it would be good to have that enabled.
Yeah.
I think Rubocop does that.
Yeah. I wonder why I wonder why I mean I wonder why we don't do that. I'm gonna have to create an issue. This is helpful. I'm gonna create an issue for the front end and someone's gonna pick it up and it's gonna be done. It's gonna make life so much better. So that's great. There was
Awesome.
one thing I wanted to highlight. A couple of things, because whenever I see these big removals, I am interested in how much dead code can we remove? Like, did we really catch all the dead code now? And so one thing I noticed was we removed something that was referencing an ID. We removed like some sort of JavaScript that's referencing an elements ID. And I did a project-wide search for that elements ID. And I saw that it was referenced in this file, but nothing ever referenced this file. So it's kind of maybe unrelated, and maybe it was dead codes from pre-existing to this change. But whenever we're removing code, there's just references that you can just start searching on, and you can find, usually find, a couple of things that just slipped through the cracks. The other thing was I'll do a project-wide search for like the keywords related to what we're removing. And so like this whole experiment and everything was called combined registration. So I did a project-wide search for combined .star registration. And that came across a reference to a file that was going to be removed but isn't around anymore. So we could, hey, there's still more references that we can find. Probably the most interesting thing that I managed to find here was Doug accidentally and removing something that wasn't used anymore removed the spec for it, but didn't get to commit actually removing the underlying function that the specs were for. So we had just these changes on the spec file without it actually, the reflecting change being on the unit file. So that symmetry of like, we remove something from the unit, I expect to be removed from the spec. Like whenever that's off, that's something to look for. We touch this spec file, but we never touch the unit is a sign that maybe something was overlooked. Yeah, cool. Thanks for letting me share that. I think these MRs are interesting.
Absolutely. Adding on to that, because you just mentioned the dead code. If you are opening up the agenda, this week I was an author of an MR, and Anna did an excellent maintainer review on this. And we actually encountered a so-called dead test, or I'm referring to it as dead test, which I think is quite a mean thing to encounter. In very short, what happened here, we're expecting something. This was a medium-sized refactoring. So in this test, we're expecting something which is no longer there, and we are expecting it to be something which is also no longer there. So at the end of the day, we're expecting undefined to be undefined, which will be true. This test was absolutely passing, but it was still quite rubbish.
Yeah.
Therefore, make sure to keep that in mind, that also an untouched green test can also lie to you. That is something to be on the lookout for.
Yeah. That's a really good point. And I think the key word there is not. Not is like a really it is a really tricky
Too generic
assertion, because it accepts a whole lot, and it could very easily go out of style when the underlying code changes. Yeah, thanks for bringing it up. That's a really great example. So in this case, we were wanting to make sure that we wanted to make sure, I guess, that these links weren't empty, but it looks like it's just not that kind of, I'm guessing this is an object, not even an array, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so it's like length isn't even a thing on it. And yeah, so this is great. Let's just assert it what it actually should be. Yeah. Shout out
Yep.
to Anna for catching that. That was fantastic. Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic catch.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for sharing that.
I do have the next point on the agenda.
Okay. Do you want me to continue sharing my screen, or do you want to share your screen? You can drive me if it's your call.
I'm happy to drive you if that's okay for you.
Yeah, that's fine.
Shouldn't be too much clicking around. So one thing I run into continuously, and as a disclaimer, I am not the most sophisticated dev when it comes to GraphQL. Like, I know what's going on, but never really digged into it very, very deep. So reviewing these things with GraphQL changes is kind of challenging to me, and I'd be curious about how you consider these kind of things. But like, I can debug a query if you go through the changes. Yeah, the changes tab, there is exactly like a query is now introduced, which obviously there has been an interface defined for it already because it works. That is something I reproduce, and I could check that we are kind of computing all the values getting from the GraphQL query correct. But to me, that kind of still feels like I'm only touching the surface on this. So how do you deal with those kind of MRs?
That's a really good question. Do you have any thoughts that come to your mind, Carla?
No, I'm kind of pretty new to GraphQL in general. So yeah.
So first thing that comes to my mind is the goal is for it to be easy. So if it seems too easy, like maybe that's okay. Like, the goal is for it to be easy. If that makes sense, what I'm saying is, like, from the front end, at least, like using Apollo and stuff like that, like this is how we use it. I think if I'm interpreting your question as you feel like you don't know what you don't know, and
Yeah.
you don't know what are the gotchas that could be here. And in those, and so I think let's abstract this just outside of GraphQL. If you're reviewing something, we talked about this last time, like that's a little outside of your comfort zone, and you realize I don't know what I don't know. I think you could try, running it, try breaking it, try hacking around with it. I would time box that activity though, so you don't spend all day trying to break the Apollo library, which, there's other people in the world that are responsible for doing that. Reaching out to an expert, like if something just, I would trust that instinct. If you're like, something doesn't seem right, like just reach out to an expert on it and get their thoughts on it. But talking specifically about GraphQL, and Apollo specifically, so from the front end, is one thing that is in the responsibility set of Apollo that's not just making requests, but also, oh gosh, the sun is right in my eyes. Apollo is not just making requests, but it's also keeping track of state and caching things. And things can go really wrong there. So if you see things that are like any kind of Apollo, dollar function is getting called, like we're having to manually refetch the query, or if we see geez, I don't know. In my testing, those are the things when it comes to Apollo I'm really cautious of, is like, are we caching the right stuff? If I'm like switching pages, if I close and open this thing again, like, is the stuff getting cached correctly? And Apollo tries to make it really easy, but there's a handful of like configurations that need to happen to make sometimes the caching behave intuitively. Does that make sense? Have you noticed any of issues like that, like Apollo caching issues?
Not that I could remember, and that might be part of the problem.
And yeah, so maybe I think that would be just with this topic specifically, that's something to keep in mind. But abstracting the problem, I can see it being helpful. I can see it being really helpful for us to document in the guideline, hey, with this technology, here's the gotchas. Like
Oh yeah,
that would be really nice.
that's the like not the best meeting to discuss this, but is GraphQL our preferred solution by default, or is this something which is allowed as a big word, but which is okay to question? Like, I don't know.
It is, yes. It
It's the
is
preferred go-to by default.
preferred go-to by default.
Okay, gotcha.
That's somewhere in our handbook / developer guide.
Okay.
But with the caveat of that, the REST API is not ever going away. And yeah.
Ever is a big word, but
Well,
yeah,
you're right. Ever is a big word. I'm sorry. Okay.
No, but you're not gonna do any GraphQL queries from a Haml template. So as long as we're dealing with those kind of things, that's probably gonna be there.
Or will you? You can actually do the startup requests. Are you familiar with this?
Don't think so.
This is worth sharing because it's weird, but helpful. Yeah, let me see if I can find this. Startup. Yes. Add page startup GraphQL call. Oh yeah. So for performance's sake, why wait if we know we're gonna make this request right away? Like, why wait for all the stuff to have loaded to kick off the GraphQL call? Maybe we can make the call like right away before the other rest of JavaScript and CSS and everything else is loaded. And so we have this helper in the YAML where we actually say add page startup GraphQL call. And what this does is it will make the call much earlier in the browser loading pipeline and cache that response such that when Apollo makes the call, Apollo doesn't actually need to go to the server. It just takes the result from that original call.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
if,
I was
what were you saying?
I was just about to ask, where is the response being saved? But it's just does the request, and the next time it will do the same request again, and it will say, okay, whatever status code cached, here you go, without me even asking somebody else.
So see here where we do this, we have this Apollo link. So like Apollo gets implemented by like a whole bunch of middlewares on the request response. And so in that chain of middlewares, we parse the startup calls. And if we were receiving a request that matches one of those startup calls, so when we get a request, then we will just forward on. We won't actually make the response. We'll just yeah. So
Gotcha.
somewhere in here, I don't have to dive into it, but we'll just
Today I
use the
learned.
response. Yeah.
Interesting.
Add page startup GraphQL call. Yeah.
Gotcha. I'll check it out.
Yeah.
I would have one very last GraphQL question, if that's
Sure.
okay. So GraphQL has this very cool feature, at least what I think, which is called a subscribe, I guess, which works a little bit like an HTTP push. It is basically the client would subscribe to any kind of value, and then the server, without any other interaction, would let the client know that this thing has changed, and then just update. Has somebody ever encountered this in the wild in our code base? Because I feel like that's a good opportunity for good UX behavior. Or all the polling we're still seeing. It's probably the most polling code base I've ever touched.
Yeah, we do some GraphQL. I think we have at least one GraphQL subscription, but
Cool.
there is backend constraints to ensure that works reliably.
Okay.
For instance, I believe that it works with WebSockets. Backends can only have so many WebSockets connected to it. And so if we have too many clients connected to the backend on a subscription, like that can cause performance issues. I believe right now I am, maybe ankle deep in conjecture land. So don't quote me on that.
I'm pretty sure you're right about the WebSockets though. That is what I remember seeing that.
Historically, we've had, I know that the backend has needed to figure out how they're going to solve the WebSocket problem. I think that they've approached ways to solve it, but it's probably adds a little bit of complexity to the interface. But I'm not entirely sure. I really don't know. So that'd be,
okay.
Yeah, that's a great question. And yeah, we don't do it a whole lot. We probably should consider using it instead of polling if we need to do it. And yeah, it's a great question.
Sweet. Let's keep that in the back of our heads for sure.
Cool. All right. Oh, I stopped sharing my screen. Well, going back to the agenda, was there anything else anyone wanted to add in the show and tell and questions section of our time together? Okay. Are there any MRs you all want to pair on reviewing?
I don't have any open, I'm afraid. What about
Yeah, I don't
else?
have any open either at the moment.
All right. I love it when I can get my work done on this meeting. Oh, no, I got to sign in. I probably shouldn't do that on the call. Let me sign in. And I have a handful of MRs that are somewhat non-trivial. So I think that should be interesting. Yeah, I was really wanting to look at this one. I will share my screen and you all help me pick. All right, this is an MR. I'm reviewing the front end of it, and the front end change is really small. So we would very likely be able to finish reviewing this MR during our time. This MR, the front end change is much larger and is doing something fairly significant. And I believe that there's other ways we can achieve some of that. This MR will take this MR is a fairly non-trivial. But and then there's this one, which is quite large. I feel like it's large. So Marcel, he's super awesome UX manager, but he also contributes code often, and so I know this is well tested. I know he's included so many screenshots. He's included so many screenshots. I had to scroll down a whole lot to get to the. Okay. So I have a feeling this is well tested, but the one thing that stands out to me with this MR is it is touching a lot, and I'm a little concerned if maybe we should split this up. that's kind of was my thoughts. But is there one that you want to dive into together? We got this one that just.
I need to drop out anyway.
Oh, that's good. No worries.
So yeah, so I'll leave it to you two to decide. But thank you very much.
Thanks, Carlo.
Good
Yeah,
to
have a
see
good
you.
one.
Have a
Bye.
great
Bye.
weekend. See you then. Paul, it is Friday afternoon for me, so let's go with the trivial one. I'm a sucker for that dopamine.
Yeah,
let's
do
start
it.
something that we can maybe finish.
Let's do it. All right. So pipeline's failing, but that's fine. Like that's not really affecting the bit I need to review here. It looks like we the new view. There's a new view for domain verification. I'm not super.
Is it GraphQL related? Okay.
I'm not super familiar with this. With what's going on here, but I don't have to be an expert in the domain, specific domain, if I can pick up the change and verify that it's safe. So let me go ahead and curl the diff, apply it. All right, here we go. So yeah, I'm reviewing the front end. I love it when I see, my one little front end file. Because I don't have a whole lot to review in this MR, it's probably good for me to just be able to run a smoke test from it. Looks like it can be pretty straightforward to
Before we start with this, quick question. What do you think about highlighting the front end changes? Because sometimes on MRs like that are so heavy on the backend side, they were like changing a test ID on the front end or something. Like with those, I don't even bother reproducing. I'll be like, whatever you've been doing, this looks good to me.
Yes, yeah.
So let's see.
This is adding like a view.
Okay, so there's actually some logic and things going on. Okay, sweet.
Yeah. I'd like to see if I can hit this view. Like I'd like to, I guess it's coming from domain verification controller, check feature availability. I guess domain verification available is a feature that we're adding. Has to be on COM. This is a COM feature. Well, do you remember how to force your GDK to be commie?
Yeah, in the dot file in the GDK where you would also set your FOSS only variable. Exactly, and there's some variable git simulate says. Is that what it is?
I think this is it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Simulate a SAS instance. Let's try that out. So I'm gonna export that. I also, when I did this, I also created this file too at the root of the GDK. This env run it, where it said I could throw this in there. So I luckily just did this when looking at Doug's M1 because it was needing the SAS thing too. So that's great. So let's start the GDK.
The reason I was just laughing is I don't know why, but I was always referring to this file as nr unit, but run it makes so much sense.
Run it.
I don't know. Yeah. Sweet. Okay.
R unit. Yeah. R unit or run it. That's funny. Let's look back at this while that's loading. And I want to see if yes. This is actually a link to that domain. Do we need some sort of external URL? icon thing. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-mm.
If we have links that go out, that leave GitLab,
Yeah.
we usually try to have some sort of external icon saying like, hey, you're gonna leave GitLab.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if I have
Gotcha.
I don't know if I have an example for that. But this is now
The
that is
square and an arrow thingy. Yeah.
yep.
Yeah.
That is making me wonder, has this MR been UX reviewed?
Mm.
It's kind of always hard to find. So it
It
looks,
is.
yeah, I'm gonna look and see. Nope, it is not. So I do think that's gonna be, I'm gonna leave that as a question for UX, but I'm also gonna ping UX on this.
Mm.
Question UX. Usually we want to show the external icon. I don't have a good example of it. I guess I can go to GitLab SVGs, and I think it's in here. Oh gosh, yes. Yes. I want to permalink. Yes. If I visit this, yes, great.
Great find. Great find.
Where am I going? Here I am. We want to show the external icon for links that leave GitLab. Do we want to do that here? Yeah.
Could I distract you with a question for a second?
Sure.
Because it is. I'm just
Challenge
seeing.
you to distract me. My focus is unmatched. I'm joking. It's not.
Yes. It is a question that came up that's not coming back to me since I asked this earlier this week to myself, is because I'm seeing it here. Let's, for example, go with the GLW full CSS class in line 7. Like, these are classes from our design system. That's probably, or utility classes. That is the correct word I'm looking for. How would you approach searching for those? Because it happens to me too often that I kind of more or less have the CSS in my head. Like, I'd go, okay, I would wanna add a width of 100% on this. Yeah, unpackage.
Yep. This is how I do it. So this is
But like, yeah, you know what I'm after. Like, sometimes you just have the CSS property, but can't think of the utility class.
yeah. So I'll even look for, I need something that's width 50%. Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Unpackage. Okay, I'll keep that in my bookmarks.
That's I'll go ahead and just drop it in the
Yeah, please.
let me add a link to this one.
Yeah, got it. Thank you.
Yep. Cool. Yeah, that's a good question.
Sweet. Okay, let's continue with review.
Yep. So we did identify, hey, we do have a to-do of wanting UX to look at this. So that's something I'll handle at the end of after I've looked at it. Looks like we're finished starting up the GDK. Let's open it up. All right. Whoa, we were. You know, when like all the CSS is like iteratively loading, it's like when here I am talking about my elite focus. It's like you start a conversation with a friend, but they're like in the middle of a yawn. You know, they kind of have to catch themselves and like
yeah, kind of. Wait a second. Oh, yeah. That's a great analogy.
All right. So how do I get to this thing? I saw this thing. It's in settings, I guess. I guess this is in settings. So let me go to the flight Domain verification. Oh gosh, I don't know how to get there. How am I supposed to get there? It must be a settings. Let me see if the issue has any. Is this Pages stuff? Yes, this has got to be Pages stuff. Yes, yes, yes. No. What? Nope. 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 How do I get to here? How do you think I can figure out how to get there?
I'm really wishing for a good but
So this doesn't have any like doc changes. Like that's kind of a, you know,
is there any kind of ID or something we could browse for on the code base?
so one thing I can look for. I think this is just setting up just that route, and I don't know if there's any links that go to it. So if I go to, oh, this is a group setting. Ah, no wonder. Yes, let's get out of here. Okay, I have to go to the group, I guess. And then I can go to settings. If I go to domain verification, I clearly don't know what I'm doing.
Let me see if I can find anything from the docs.
There might be some, yes, routes. Here we go. Yes, here's the routes. Oh, we added an item. Oh, I haven't enabled this. Have I enabled this thing? Is there something I need to enable? Here's a menu item for the settings menu.
The thing we're currently searching for should be in the MR description on the how to reproduce, shouldn't it?
Yes. Yes, it should.
Just a wild idea.
Yes. No, I agree. I lost my page. Oh yeah, here we go. It was here. I'm now getting closer though, because looking at this, I see we have this namespace. This should be next to reporting. It's not a thing. And the billing and usage quotas, here's usage quotas billing. So for some reason, it's not showing up unless domain verification is available. So it must not be available. So why would it not be available? That's let me go here. So this is not available, and oh, I know why it's not available. Yes, because it's not available because I've made this .com, and last time I did that, I said I checked this box, which it says allow use of licensed EE features, which means it's going to check your namespace plan to see if we need to do the EE feature or not.
Okay.
I haven't set up the license for any of my namespaces, so I'm gonna uncheck this.
Basically on an unlicensed instance, kind of.
Yeah, this group was as there we go. All right, there we go. So there's domain verification. So that was.
Wait a second. What is? Okay, I don't fully understand.
Oh,
like
okay,
I'm currently looking in the docs. Custom domain verification on GitLab.com. Why?
What'd you say?
Like
Oh,
I get
for pages.
that will be then your page will be under paulslaughter'scooldomain.com, and okay, you can still deploy and stuff and push it there with GitLab.
Yeah.
I see.
So like
Okay.
I use pages for conventional comments, but I've just registered this domain with GitLab. GitLab set up the SSL stuff, all sorts of stuff with it. I was just able to say, yes, this is definitely my domain. And they verified it, and then they were able to go forward with it. So I'm pretty sure it's with pages.
Cool. Okay.
It might also be with just in deployment environments too. Like, I don't know if there's other uses for it as well, but
okay, understood.
Yeah, that is a good question. Okay, but cool. We're here. Something that's sticking out to me. Do we want this search bar? I guess so. We have the search for all the settings, so I guess that's fine.
But should it say search page?
I don't know if these things are really that, you know.
Fair point. We're looking at the
You're asking for a lot there, Yannick.
I'll shut up.
No, you're good. So that's great. So this seems to be working. Let's try out the step here. Opening the Rails console. One thing I do want to just keep an eye on is that these breadcrumbs. So whenever we have a new page, there's a couple of things to keep in mind. Of like one being breadcrumbs, the other being like title. So if I go to CI/CD, yeah. So like we haven't changed the title. Yeah, we might want to change the
to domain verification setting. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I think we'll want to do that. So let me go to our CI/CD show. Settings CI/CD show for the groups. Yes. Let me copy these. And let me also use that as an example too of like, are we doing an H1 at the very top? That should be something that the UXer would I'm going to leave that for UX of whether or not we want to do the H1 here or not, you know?
Yep. Understood.
But
I'd probably say yes, but let's leave this up.
Well, what could be, I mean, so look at these, like all the other settings are going to look like this. But things, some of them are different. Like usage quotas is clearly different. And also notice usage quotas doesn't have a search bar.
Yep, it has this filter thingy.
Do we want to? I mean, maybe we don't want the search bar for the main verb. I imagine we don't.
I don't see a lot of benefit in it.
All right, let me see. Let me see something. If I go to usage quotas groups, usage quotas controller in the groups. So this is using group settings. I believe. Let me go to, I lost my place. Domain verification. How does usage quotas not have a sidebar? Or the search thing? I wonder if that's coming from here. What can we use to enable and disable the search thing? Well, you know what? I'm just gonna leave a comment about it. I don't have to solve that problem. All right.
Yep.
Do you remember the first Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire?
Remember is a big word, but yeah.
Okay. Do you remember when, you know, he runs into the he's doing his first fight, and here's that focus again. He's doing his first fight, and the guy that booked him was like, "Hey, the guy's the Peter Parker was like, you're supposed to give me all the money." It's like, "Yeah, but you knocked him out in 2 minutes, so you only get this much." And Peter Parker's like, "Well, that's not fair." And that guy says, "I missed the part where that's my problem." And then later, the guy gets robbed, and the guy's saying, "Hey, help!" And Peter Parker says, "I missed the part where that's my problem." So that's my that's what's going in my head right now when I'm like, I don't have to solve this.
Absolutely. Just answer with a Spider-Man meme and people will
Yeah.
know. They'll be all right.
There's a pretty good someone made a pretty good edit of that Spider-Man movie where it's all these clips of him and throughout the whole movie, but they've just played that audio part in front of it. So it's like they're all, you know, they're all at the end. Sorry, I'm spoiling it for whoever hasn't seen it, but they're all at the end. Green Goblin's died, and Harry Osborn is upset or whatever. And Peter Parker says, "I missed the part where that's my problem." Like, it's just really funny. Yeah. All right. Sorry, I don't mean to derail this too much.
Let's carry on.
All right. A couple of questions with this view. One, do we want to add a more descriptive breadcrumb and title, like the like how the CI/CD page uh here we go, like how like the and page title. Okay, so that's great. Since we are using what is the layout called again? The group settings. The settings search bar by default. Do we want to exclude this? Do we want to exclude this? It looks like usage quotas. Usage quotas. Let's figure out how to do this. So this is, I want to leave a picture to make it really clear what I'm talking about. Domain verification usage quotas. So let me take a picture of, where was domain oh, here it is. See, I couldn't find it because of the HTML title. Yeah, how interesting is that? Okay. And then let me go to usage quotas. Great. Oh, did I get this backwards? How in the world did that happen? Oh, I did get it backwards.
Pasting it, yeah, that happens to me a lot.
I got that backwards. All right. There was another question, or is there not another question?
Not that I can think of.
Okay. Cool. All right. Other than that, this is really, really straightforward. If the domain is empty, This is probably the only thing is like here, if the domain's empty, we actually add something to the T head. Oh, wait, are these all being added to the T head? They are, aren't they? That doesn't
Mhm.
seem right. Right?
Give me 2 more seconds to fully understand this. So in line, well, T head in 10 and 11 are hard coded. Well, but what's the issue? That should be okay. We're
These
having
should
an
be in the T
empty.
body, right? Because it's not part of the table head. I would expect these to be in the T bod. It is in the T body. Where's T body coming from? What am I
I
missing?
do have another mean question regarding the tables, if I'm allowed to distract one more time.
You're good.
What about resizing? And kind of like, I know we're not the most responsive web page in the world, but
Sure,
still.
that's a great idea. Let's see what happens. So I was gonna run this. We're at time though too. But let me see if I can run this real fast. Project. What is the? I guess I'm gonna do flight JS flight. Is that the group?
What are you setting up?
I'm following the instructions for creating
Combi?
one of these.
Oh, I would have just gone straight forward and fake it, like on the just edit the HTML on the example you're already having.
That's a really good idea too. So yeah, if this doesn't work, that's a good idea.
Just oh yeah, awesome.
I mean, it's not a lot.
Oh, a table, it's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, if let's say what happens if we have a really long project.
Yeah, like for a responsive table, I'm already happy if this thing is not falling apart completely. Yeah, sweet.
Yeah, that's pretty fine. Yeah, that's pretty fine. I think that's okay. Yeah, I think the
Awesome.
only other things then I now realize why these rows are showing up in the body. Maybe and so this is a non-blocking comment. But it's because this is actually a sibling to the head. For some reason, I thought it was under the head, the T head, but that's because of this.
Gotcha.
I'm just gonna leave that as like a thought, non-blocking. Maybe we should explicitly add the T body around these conditions. At first, I thought these TRs were underneath the T head.
Gotcha. Awesome.
Your call.
That's
it.
I need to jump to another thing, Paul. It's not departing. I'll not be around this week.
Okay.
Sorry about that. I'll speak to you next week and have a great weekend.
Thanks. Take care. Bye.
Awesome. See you then.